Going to try to speak on this. Everyone always has like something to say about my way of handling things and like everything that's gone on. Babe, can you give it 1 second, please, so I could do a quick FTR? Can you just do the trunk first so I could do an FTR? Take everything out and vacuum the trunk. Take everything out. I want to see the trunk empty. Put it all right here, please. So I'm going to, in communication, yes, and language. So I'm going to try to explain what's been going on in a way that is acceptable for children to understand, but that adults still get. My name is Heather Gillespie. I have 4 children, Vivi, Lewis, Alexis, Weston. I got into a relationship with someone in 2015 who told me that they were a millionaire and that they were going to take care of my children and I. I've never been wealthy. I come from a middle class background, so I've never really had to suffer. In 2015, the promises of, well, let me take that back. Depending on your definition of suffering, the suffering that I've experienced over the last 5 years, I've never had. I thought I had suffered. I was sent away at 14 to a boot camp style place that was shut down, having no criminal record. I was never sexually active, no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing. There was abuse there. They broke a kid's arm. There was some other stuff. So I thought I had a really difficult childhood, middle class with like all of this adversity. Turns out that the way I've suffered over the last 5 years has like put that to shame. Like those things, like no one ever busted my head open, when I was a teenager. No one, so it was hard, what I went through, being sent away and all of that, being abandoned and going through those emotional and psychological issues. But physically, I wasn't being assaulted. In 2015, I met this man, Dylan Smith, who you guys know from the show Love After Lockup, who promised that he was going to take care of me and my kids for the rest of our lives, and basically just told me, we met while I was working bottle service, and his group of friends, was kind of like up to no good. And he would tell me, like, you're not meant to be around these people. You've only been working bottle service for a few weeks. You should get away from here. All the guys that I knew would tell me that. And so that's what ultimately ended up happening, was that probably after 6 months of working promotions, VIP promotions, bottle service, bartending, etc., I ended up going fully remote with my career. And it went, I'm not going to get into the details of my career, but I've covered everything from 10 years of experience in healthcare, personal training and fitness, sales and marketing, you name it. Now, I worked at Northwestern for 6 years, endocrinology, rheumatology, blah, blah, blah. Let's fast forward to the part where I have this great, stellar career, right? I'm doing all the right things despite all of this tremendous adversity. My kids live with me full time. It's Vivi, Lewis, and Alexis. Weston wasn't born yet. Dylan comes out of prison in 2019. During the time he was in prison, I was being extorted by a police officer and psychologically manipulated by a lot of different people into doing random things that they forced me to do. And by force, I mean by extortion or threat of bodily harm or emotional harm or financial harm or ruin. And this is officers as well as Dylan. I have no criminal record. To this day, I have no criminal record. I end up getting an offer to be on this show by Dylan. And Love After Lockup had already contacted me, and I was on the fence. And then somehow they got through to him, even though he's in prison. If you've been to prison, you know you can't receive incoming calls. You can only call the people who are on your pre-approved list. So it made no real sense at all whatsoever, none at all. Well, long story short, he ends up going to prison, getting out of prison on the terms that we participate in this show, Love After Lockup, and that he works these deals. It's called a proffer, the paper that the state of Illinois puts together. You have to follow what they tell you to do and help like catch bad guys who are doing the same crimes as you, whatever. I don't know the details. Somehow, within the first year of him getting out, and having to do these deals, he ends up beginning to abuse drugs and alcohol again, real bad, starts physically assaulting me and doing other things to me, throws me out of my home into the street. Police, who I've contacted for help with an order of protection because he was physically assaulting me, are the ones who ultimately said I had to go after he went to the courthouse after me and got an erroneous order of protection claiming that he was afraid for his life, that I was beating him. Mind you, he's 6'4" at this time, or 5, on steroids, huge guy, works out, etc. and so forth. Is the trunk empty?
I just vacuumed it. I'm warming up for a second.
Okay, fine. That's fine. So I'm in the court system in 2019 saying, hey, you guys, I fell in love with this guy who promised that he was going to buy me a mansion for me and my kids if I complied with his proffer, deals, etc. Helped him get out in 5 years rather than 12 years, stayed with him his whole sentence. Lo and behold, despite that proffer and the protection, the illusion, the mirage of protection I thought that I had, I'm getting beat up out here, sexually assaulted and forced to fucking engage in things that are not for me. I need help. Rather than helping me, the state or the local law enforcement or whomever was in charge, the feds, who knows who, decided that they would try to hide it. And they threw me out of my house and they ignored every one of my calls for help and all of my police reports and all of my calls to the FBI and all of my narratives that I've typed and posted publicly and blog posts and YouTube posts and everything of me begging for assistance for the last 6 years. And by assistance, I mean, hi, I keep getting attacked and assaulted randomly at random, or from my perspective, what appears to be at random. If you have information that would help me to understand who could possibly be doing this, please let me know. Heather, you're crazy. No one's hurting you on purpose. This is all coincidence. Yeah, okay. How did I make it 35 years without ever being the victim of a violent assault? And now in the last 4 years, I've been stabbed, bludgeoned now twice, physically assaulted numerous times. What the fuck? You know? So let's fast forward to today. So after this period of housing instability from 2019, when I reported Dylan and I was thrown out of my home unlawfully, unjustly, my car, Cadillac CTS, was stolen and sold at auto auction, unlawfully, unjustly, unethically, immorally. And I was left to die outside, basically. Law enforcement and authorities looked the other way while I was sexually assaulted multiple times. When I called law enforcement to report these sexual assaults, they alleged that I had a mental health disorder and said I should go to the hospital. I met Xavier after 2 years, almost 3, of being homeless all by myself in the street with nowhere to go, being sexually assaulted twice. Xavier told me his brother was the district attorney of the state of Illinois, that they were familiar with my case, that they were going to help me. I was bludgeoned, stabbed, raped multiple times, extorted by a member of law enforcement, Detective David Shepard, manipulated, psychologically abused, and all of it on a recorded line through Cook County and the state of Illinois' prison system. My children all lived with me full time, 5 out of 7 days a week, and went with their fathers on the weekends. And I visited Dylan every weekend and spoke to him on the phone 4 to 6 hours a day, all recorded. I was encouraged and threatened into stealing a laptop computer from Jordan Lott for Detective David Shepard. He told me that if I didn't, he would put my kids into the DCFS system and take them from me. I have gone, internal affairs got involved, the detective lost his job. Kim Fox was in office while all of this was going on, and I don't know how to connect it back. It's like the ruin that they left me in never got cleaned up. And then the next regime came into office and they just started kicking us around like residual damage, like residual leftover garbage of what the people before them left. Mind you, I have more than a bachelor's degree of education, and experience don't even let me start, okay? Because I have worked in healthcare for on and off for about 15 years, 6 solid years at Northwestern as the administrator of endocrinology and rheumatology. I've recorded this on a bunch of other YouTube channels and stations. Now, working at Northwestern in my capacity, I also took an active approach at the role of anticipate need, create solution. And that wasn't really like a paid role. So I was getting paid an hourly to do administrative work for actually it was just one endocrinologist. Somehow in the first 3 months of me being there, it went from one endocrinologist to 3 endocrinologists and 2 rheumatologists. Yeah, 2 rheumatologists. So I had 5 doctors. From there, I also got another endocrinologist who needed diabetic education. From there, the entire 23rd floor, nothing but internal medicine doctors, they started calling on me to do their newly diagnosed diabetic consultations, which meant I would go up there, introduce myself as Dr. Aronson's assistant, get them into her schedule. She was very busy and in high demand. Get them into her schedule based on need. How bad was their case? How uncontrolled was their diabetes? How urgent was the necessity of this appointment? Pre-approve them with all of their insurances, etc. Teach them about glucometer use, instruct them on what dose their primary care, their internal medicine doctor was having them start to take, and then kind of explain to them the next 3 days how they needed to call us, keep a glucometer, blood sugar log, etc. and so forth. Show them how to prick their finger, what to do, how to reload their Lancets and their blood glucose monitoring devices. Also, how to instructing them on how to use like Humalog, Novolog, other insulin pens, as well as draw up syringes if that's what they needed, which was very few and far between. Most people had switched to pens by that time. This is 2015, to remind you. So 2015 is when I ended my career in healthcare, and that was after I had a late postpartum hemorrhage giving birth to my youngest daughter, Alexis, who is now 12. I almost died, and I didn't feel compassion from Northwestern. I didn't feel support from Northwestern during that period, and a lot of that had to do with that nefarious lesbian, Gina, who said that I was gender discriminating against her for calling her Gina with the dykey haircut in the office. It was a joke that she created. She introduced herself to me that way as, "Hi, I'm Gina with the dykey haircut." She was also a a rocket science student at UIC. So, and I hired her. I chose her, handpicked her, thought she was fabulous for that joke. And that's what ended up making me walk off the fucking job after 6 years. 5 or 6 years. Now, working with hundreds of doctors on a day-to-day basis and being available to be called on for consultation, when you go to medical school, you learn at the very least the basics of identifying mental health disorders in patients, as well as, and especially, urgent mental health disorders that cause for or call for some sort of intervention. In the entire time I worked in healthcare, not a single doctor recommended me for any sort of psychological evaluation. Being in the relationship I was in with Dylan, being extorted by law enforcement, being harmed by, and when I say law enforcement, it hurts me because I still to this day trust law enforcement, and I was beat up by a cop at 14 weeks pregnant with Weston for no reason, laying on a fucking yoga mat, and extorted by this Detective Shepard and thrown outside by this group of cops that claim to be Chicago PD and all of this shit. But I still trust cops because I was fucking raised and conditioned and groomed my entire life to believe that the cops protect you, period, plain and simple. Okay, so where is the justice from being unlawfully thrown out of my home that I legally inhabited? I never received it. They let Dylan stay in the apartment. My kids had to go stay with their fathers, and I was thrown into the street with nothing other than a fucking luggage full of my stuff. This was my apartment. I was the stable one. Dylan was in prison. He didn't have a place. He didn't have furniture. He didn't have clothes. He didn't have anything. I did. All of it got taken and thrown away and destroyed. None of it was illegal. I had a fucking 15-year career in healthcare. Plus, I was working in bottle service. Plus, I was running promo events. Plus, I was working trade show modeling at McCormick Place, making $3,000, $2,000 in a 5-day show. On top of my salary from Northwestern, I was fucking getting money. I was working my ass off, and I was going hard. I was in the gym every day. So they destroyed my life, literally. They walked in when Dylan came home rather than nurturing that relationship. And I had these pillows. It was Christmas time, 2019. And I had these pillows on the couch, and one said naughty and one said nice. They were for Christmas. And it was me, Dylan, Vivi, Lewis, and Alexis. We all lived together. The 3 kids had the upstairs room. I made it really cute for them with like 1 small bed and 2 other twin beds. And then no decorations, just a TV, video games, and their beds. And then they could decorate their beds however they wanted, and a small little closet with their clothes. And we were going to get a house. He promised me a house. And then Dylan and I in the downstairs bedroom. And we ended up, all apart, all of us. The kids are with their fathers, and I'm by myself, homeless, and Dylan stayed in the 2037 West Roscoe apartment. Make that make sense? I don't know how you can. But I've never been restored since then. Since then, I've never been restored. Since then, I've never had my furniture, my belongings, my sense of security, my children living with me, advocacy. I've never had any of it. I've literally just been dodging fucking bullets since 2019. I've never had restoration. I've never had justice, ever. Never. Now, after I got thrown out of my apartment for going to seek assistance and protection, mind you, I went in front of Judge Leviander Smith and I said to him, please help me. I believe that Dylan Smith is receiving preferential treatment because of his signed proffer and involvement of promises to complete certain deals for both local and federal law enforcement authorities. I'm scared. I have nowhere to go. Please help. And that judge lifted the phony order of protection that Dylan was granted and let me go back home. 2 weeks later, Dylan got me thrown out again. I did nothing to him. Nothing. I legally lived there. This was my home. I ended up homeless as a result of being thrown out of my home unlawfully, sexually assaulted by at least 2 men who I said I didn't want to have sex with, but they had sex with me anyways. There's been no justice for that. I reported it. No assistance at all whatsoever. In one of the places where I was living, where I was allowed to live in a bedroom for a person who had extra space, I woke up and my bikini bottom, I was in a bathing suit, a bikini with a top and a baggy t-shirt over to sleep in. And I had limited clothing. Obviously, as I told you, they had kept most of my things. They allowed me to get a suitcase and leave. That's what they allowed me to leave with. So I was sleeping. I woke up and the bikini was untied and flapped down. I tried to report that to law enforcement. They put me in handcuffs and arrested me instead. That was Lombard PD. No justice from that. At Montclair, they broke in and left semen all over my sheets. I turned it into the police and asked them to run DNA, and no follow-up from that. They accused me of being crazy, told me to go to the hospital. The person who sexually assaulted me after I had walked back and forth for 5 days with no sleep and was exhausted and promised me a hotel room, no strings attached, and then sexually assaulted me by force. No justice there, no resolution, no court, no restitution, nothing. So then I meet Xavier after being dropped off at Ontario and Clark by an undercover officer named Juan, or his son, Louis, but it was Juan that I was staying with, and he had a son, which my son's name is Louis, so I always thought it was weird that they kept on inserting people with duplicate names, but Xavier approached me, and he was completely normal when he approached me, riding a Zumo bike, dressed in Levi's, Nikes, told me, I'm taking you to a safe house in the Gold Coast, and my brother is the district attorney, Carlos Montoya. That was in 2022. Still have not been to court over any of this. Still have not had any restitution, no restoration, no nothing. Had 1 month in a safe house, and then Xavier and I together were thrown into the street. We weren't even in a relationship together. We were not sexually active, nothing. Nothing at all. And then they let us back there for another 2 weeks, and then they threw us out again for no reason. No reason at all. Unprovoked, for absolutely no reason. They told me that my kids were going to be coming to that safe house, that we were going to live there together, that no one was ever going to have to be able to remove us from there, that was the restoration, that was the restitution. I don't know what happened with that. Ended up homeless for another 3 years after that. I've spent probably close to 40 or 60, between 40 and 60,000 total in the last 6 years on Airbnbs and hotels, and slept in the backseat of my car and in a tent. My entire pregnancy with Weston was spent in a tent next to Belmont Harbor Yacht Club. Xavier would lock me in the tent for 4 to 6 hours a day while he went to go look for food or beg sponsors to help us with food. I went to the hospital. I went to social services. I called for shelter assistance over and over and over and over and over, hundreds of times. We still have all the calls and text messages. We were denied shelter assistance and assistance at every single turn. During that period of homelessness, as I explained before, I was sexually assaulted multiple times, bludgeoned, beat up by a cop on body cam at 14 weeks pregnant, when I already explained to him numerous times I was pregnant and did nothing wrong, was not combative in any way, was laying in a yoga mat in a public place, not bothering anyone, with witnesses, 4 witnesses, including Xavier. No restitution for that, no restoration. Have no answers as to why I haven't been permitted my court-ordered visitation with my other 3 children besides Weston. Now, fast forward to the fact that after I've been held in this tent, I give birth at St. Joseph's Hospital. Xavier's father the whole time is saying, as soon as the baby's born, I have an apartment for you guys. You guys are fine. As soon as the baby's born, I'm going to help you guys. Everything's going to be okay. We just wanted to see if the city of Chicago was going to step up. If they don't, now we have a lawsuit to say that the shelter system in the city of Chicago is not functioning appropriately, that it's being gate kept, and all of this grants and funding and public funding to keep people off the streets. Where's that money going if a pregnant woman, who's competent and literate, making these calls every day, can't get a shelter bed? Who can? And they were telling me they were going to use that as grounds for a lawsuit. But that as soon as the baby was born, Xavier's father was going to get us an apartment. We would never be outside again. 3 days old, Weston gets stolen by Caitlin. I'm not allowed to say her name. Yeah, I am. She doesn't work for the agency anymore. Caitlin Chahusky. A woman who claimed that she worked for the Department of DCFS. She did not. The badge that she furnished was in fact false, and I have asked numerous times for personnel files or other proof from the DCFS and Springfield, as well as their quality assurance, QA, and internal affairs departments. From my attorney, Ellen, she just keeps saying there is no internal affairs department when I ask her to take action. I've asked formally that appeals be filed. I've filed an emergency motion to vacate. It's all been ignored. I've completed every single service that's been requested of me by the agency, and I have a court-ordered 3 visits a week minimum, and I have not been getting that. For 6 weeks, they've canceled at least 1 visit every single week, without exception. And sometimes they don't even cancel. They just don't answer the phone. So I've been in full compliance with every single order of the DCFS, 0 exceptions. Since Weston's been born, I've had a glass of alcohol 3 times, and that's in 2 years. 3 alcohol sips in 3 years. I've never been an alcoholic. I've never had a problem abusing alcohol. I smoke pot a little bit for the PTSD and mostly the anxiety, and that's it. I don't do any other drugs. I don't take any other medication. I haven't been instructed by any doctor to follow up in any specific way. I've completed all of the services they've asked for, but yet here we are on a day I'm supposed to see my son, and we don't have a visit. And Friday, I had the exact same set of conversations with DCFS. Hey, we have a visit today. Nobody showed up. Nobody showed up to pick up my son. Nobody showed up to the office. Nobody showed up. So my baby child, who's used to seeing me 3 times a week, now has no fucking clue what's going on, just like I have no clue what's going on. Do you think that he needs to see his mother? Absolutely, he needs to see his mother. Do you know a 2-year-old that doesn't need to see their mother? And then on top of that, they're curating all the fucking violence again. This is the 2nd time I've been bludgeoned in my life. Don't fucking tell me this shit is coincidental. Don't tell me that this shit is not real. I was bludgeoned again. And my mirror was knocked off of my car. Punched off of my car. Me completely sober, not provoking anyone. And that's what they do. They find a way to make whatever point or narrative that they are trying to argue, even knowing it's illegitimate. Even knowing I've been harassed, I've been stalked, I've been chased down in the street physically by formations of vehicles on and off of camera. There's been 0 acknowledgement, 0 restitution. V-Law, that's what I named my new Instagram. V-Law, Viviana Lewis Alexis Weston. Those are the acronym. That's an acronym for the first initial of the names of all my children in ascending order of age, descending order of age. Viviana Lewis Alexis Weston. In the correct order. Vivi's the oldest, then Lewis, then Alexis, then Weston. V-Law, virtual law. I was promised a number of times that my family and I would no longer be harmed, angeled, dolled out, sexually assaulted, pimped, bludgeoned, stabbed. Yet here I am, separated from my children. My 12-year-old daughter and I haven't been able to have more than a 30-second fucking conversation since September. Not because I don't have a court order to have custody of her and her brother and sister, but because whatever this third-party, nefarious, malicious takeover is that thinks it's acceptable to fucking bludgeon me, I need stitches, and I don't have insurance. They canceled my insurance in April, claiming that I make too much money. Make too much money? Where? Where? I am under the fucking poverty line. Make too much money where? But they canceled my insurance in April, said I don't qualify for public aid, and said that I owe them $900 of backed link card payments. I'm sorry. I have literally been without a place to live before I got this apartment for 5 years. On a very, very limited budget with almost no extra money at all whatsoever once I handle operating costs, zero profit. How do I not qualify? So, of course, I pull up the public assistance, whatever it is, website, qualifications. I PDF the training manual for DCFS and their company's mission statement and policy. Everything that all of these third parties are doing to me is illegal, unlawful, unethical, and not by the mission statement of these fucking agencies. And I'm broadcasting this to you live today from the parking lot, probably the same exact parking spot I was sitting in when I was bludgeoned with my own tire iron in the Cadillac 3 years ago. And there's still been, guess what? Big fucking shocker here. No restitution, no restoration, no advocacy from that instance. How's your life going? And all I want to do is start a healthcare consulting agency, hire other doctors to work with me, be the founder and owner, and work in a coordinated effort to provide intelligence to agencies, third-party agencies, not necessarily legal agencies, third-party agencies that are developing technology. I want to work, hire, and employ doctors as well as other administrative staff to work hand in hand with IT teams as consultants to give a behind the scenes look when certain technology is in development stages so that we can offer a different perspective to these developers. But they've got me out here getting fucking bludgeoned and assaulted and served with eviction notices. They served me an eviction. So last month they started flooding my apartment with HIV test kits and Bibles. My landlord wouldn't even throw them away anymore. She was so fucking over it. She would just text me, get rid of all of these fucking packages. Keep in mind, I've paid my rent every single month since I've moved into this place and followed all of the rules. I'm not even there during the day. I leave at 7 in the morning every fucking morning. The number of times I've slept in, maybe 3, and one of them is the day that the sheriff came and served me with an eviction notice. I have court January 27th for eviction under the grounds that I had, mind you, my apartment was broken into 5 or 6 times. The new apartment, not the Montclair one, because you can clearly go back in your little YouTube diary here on this same channel and see me complaining about them breaking into the Montclair apartment 3-4 years ago. But yeah, I have all the text messages. I'll upload them to my shorts where I'm messaging my landlord saying, hey, someone broke into my apartment and took a literal shit, dropped a deuce into my toilet. Can you please help me install a camera? I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. In April of this last year, I called law enforcement because someone broke in and stole a pillow and a Bluetooth speaker, along with my bank account information. Now, this month, they've pooped. They've left a huge mess in my bathroom. They've cooked food in the oven. They've moved shit around. That's pretty much, and they've taken off the doorknob so that the doorknob literally will just pull right off when I get home.
Taking pots and pans.
And they've taken pots and pans, Xavier says. And soap. I don't know anyone who would be in or out of my apartment. My kids have never told me, Mom, we need to go to your apartment. I've invited them there. They've never said, yes, I want to go. I don't have any friends left. I've been separated from my social circle for 6 years now, literally. I mean, they're my friends. I care for them, and I don't have any ill will towards them, but we don't talk. We don't communicate. If we go around each other, there's some sort of huge curated fucking explosive God knows what. So here we are, almost 3 years later after I was bludgeoned the first time, with another fucking huge gash, can't go to the hospital to have stitches because my insurance has been canceled unlawfully, unethically. I'm a natural born United States citizen, had my first job and started paying fucking taxes at 14 years old. I'm 39 this month in January, 29 forever. Eternal youth family. So I will have plastic surgery or whatever fucking type of biotechnology is out there to keep me looking young and happy and physically fit. And I think that might be another reason, you know? So here we are. At the time I'm supposed to be seeing my 2-year-old son 3 visits a week. Second visit in 4 days that's been canceled. And as I said, it's not even being canceled. The driver that's usually very reliable, her phone is off and goes straight to voicemail. So does the caseworker for my case. Her phone is off and goes straight to voicemail. So I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Xavier's mother, who supposedly has the baby, is not answering phone calls, but text messages me that no driver has come and that, you know, she's just too busy to accommodate meeting us somewhere for lunch. So this is all for the record. I don't really have much to say else other than this. All of this has been engineered, curated. None of it is coincidental. There is most certainly 1000% numerous third-party influences, a ton of malicious takeover. There's a lot of stuff going on. They're causing the car to go analog randomly. If you've ever had an Xbox 360 with the driving component, it'll vibrate, or the remote control will vibrate if you're doing a driving game and you like go in the bushes or something like that. They're causing my car to do that randomly while I'm just driving down the road, start vibrating violently, beeping, slamming on my brake when I'm not even, you know, in danger of hitting anything. The bludgeoning, they've got Xavier's moods all over the fucking place. Xavier is not bipolar. Xavier has had periods of over 2-3 months at a time where he exhibits no symptoms of being weird or fucked up at all. And then randomly, it's like the people who are in charge of that, making Xavier appear to be bipolar, are like, oh shit, we haven't done anything to make him look bipolar lately. Let's make him throw Heather over his head onto her back on the sidewalk and just walk away scotch-free because we say he's fucked up mentally. That's been my life. I'm a woman.